Ego Obi is a mother, a mentor, a charity worker, but she is also a technologist and head of operations for Google in Sub-Saharan Africa. Ego is passionate about using her time to help people make a difference. Amongst many other things, it was a privilege to discuss the extraordinary work that her team have carried out in developing countries in recent times. We also talk about the frightening untapped potential of Sub-Saharan Africa. Ego also talks candidly about her mentoring work with women. Seldom have I learned so much from a single conversation. It was inspiring, enlightening. This one has got it all. So Ego, thank you so much for coming on the Tech Leaders podcast. I am really excited by the prospect of talking about some of the amazing things we're going to uncover today, especially the work that Google have been doing in Sub-Saharan Africa and other emerging markets. But before all that, I just wanted to ask you to take us back to the early part of your career. Where did it all begin for you?
So my background is financial accounting, so financial systems. And after university, the norm was you go to take your ACCA, the professional qualifications, and then you practice. So my career started as a professional accountant. However, as much as I love numbers, I'm a numbers person, I also knew that I like to take things apart. So I was at PwC, actually, one of the top 4 accounting firms. I was sent to client sites on financial systems implementations. But I found that I leaned more towards the system side over the accounting side. So I very quickly became the bridge between the finance team and the systems team. So my preference was always to work with clients that had systems implementations. And that's really where my interest was sparked. With some of the clients, we were actually implementing either Oracle Financials or actually SAP as well. So I kind of did both. And then I got a role working with Oracle, and that's how I kind of made the leap from the finance side into the system side. So
you were drawn to the efficiency of software for being able to manage finances, essentially.
Exactly. Yes.
You strike me as somebody who likes to bring order to a state of chaos. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. You got that very quickly. Yes.
I wanted to ask you about the coaching vine. Okay, You're obviously passionate about women in tech, women leadership, female leadership. So tell us about your thought process behind setting up that venture. And the key drivers for setting it up.
I introduce myself as one who's passionate about making a difference, right? Using my time, talent, resources.
Yeah, sure.
By nature, I'm an encourager, and I've always been that way. I don't know when that actually started in my life, but I'm always very quick to help and to give and, support as much as I can. When I joined in the early days, I was working in the city. I noticed there weren't that many women, and of course there weren't that many women of color as well in the city. So the idea of the coaching vine was really kind of born out of the fact that there weren't that many women, and with the kind of person that I was, wanting to help or give or support, I had a number of people approach me to be their mentor, both in the workplace and outside of the workplace. And people ask me questions. Oh, how did you navigate your way from this organization to the other? Or how did you grow in your career? So that's really where it started, creating something that kind of bounces ideas or supporting people or giving advice on how to navigate either their careers or a difficult situation. An example that comes to mind is the fact that sometimes as women, we feel like we have to check every box before we take on an opportunity or a challenge. Whereas from my understanding, from what I've heard and from research with men, it's not the case. You just throw your hat in the ring anyway. So the idea behind it was to to kind of support women, especially younger women who aspire to be leaders. Something that I've learned over the years is to know what your brand is, or know what you want your brand to be, assess where you are right now. Are there gaps? What do you need to do to close those gaps? And then that then helps you build the confidence.
That's inspirational. And I think there's some brilliant pieces of advice in there as well that I'm sure will resonate with many who are listening. Mm-hmm. Just really keen to chat about the period of your career where the opportunity came up to join Google at quite a pivotal moment, not only in your career, but in the evolution of such a disruptive, trailblazing organization like Google. Talk us through that time in your life when you joined Google and your motivations for wanting to join an organization like that.
As much as I say that I like to be intentional about, things I do, decisions I make, joining Google was not intentional, right? So, a recruiter got in touch and I had a look. Of course, I knew what was happening at the time. This was in 2005. And I said, yeah, I could explore. And, they sold it to me. And I thought, okay, in order for me to actually accept, I needed to learn a bit more about the organization. Once I joined, I realized that I made the right decision. The culture hasn't really changed. It's grown, of course, but it's kind of stayed true to its culture, which is that innovative mindset, fail and fail fast. The evolution of the culture is really centered around that innovation and innovative mindset. The one thing that's kind of branded around that we talk about often is focus on the user and all else will follow. We kind of, you respect each other. You respect, it doesn't matter whether I'm a woman, whether I'm a man, whether I'm transgender or not. So it's really, it then helps to foster that inclusive culture. I mean, nobody's quite there. I wouldn't say any organization is there 100%, but with that culture and those values, it actually helps grow the culture.
I remember hearing that Google did this thing. This was going back a while, so it was a little bit more groundbreaking then than it would be now. But apparently they used to give their employees like 1 day a week or maybe a couple of hours a week whereby they would work on their own personal project.
Yeah.
And that's where Android came from, Google Pay, and lots of other of these periphery products.
Gmail was birthed out of that. It is true. So every Googler, it doesn't matter what part of the world you work in, is given that time to spend 20% on their time on it's called 20% project. So anyone can take on a 20% project. And, one of the beauties of that, so I talked about the innovative mindset. That actually, this is what this actually means. You get given time to spend exploring something that is innovative, that is of interest, or it could even be a team. In previous roles, I've actually grown my team from 20%ers, right? So somebody says, I talked about leading an effort in emerging markets, so all regions, so Middle East, North Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, Latin America, and Asia Pacific. So I had a global team, and our scope was really to bring about internet access, internet infrastructure to work with the countries within these regions to bring about stable or robust internet infrastructure. I've spent a number of years working in Silicon Valley and, other parts of the world. But there are a number of people who were, let's just say maybe a product manager or a software engineer who is building the core products. They might have an interest or they might have an idea to build something that's specific to an emerging market, because not all our products are optimized for different markets, right? So an engineer could have an idea to say, oh, actually, I know how I can adapt this product to suit this particular market. So they take it on as a 20% project, and it becomes embedded in Google's core products, and it's rolled out in these countries. So that's what the 20% project is about. It still exists.
Oh, that's fantastic. I think if there is any way to incentivize innovation and trust people to come, because people are at their best when they're trusted, aren't they?
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean? That's what so when they've got creative autonomy, that's when great things happen. And that's demonstrable here, because Gmail and, other Google products changed the world, really, didn't they?
Yeah, exactly.
You talked about your segue into sort of systems and software from the finance world, and I know you've joined Google looking at sort of internal applications and stuff. But then you sort of moved towards, we touched upon emerging markets and also education as well. And I know your role moved in that direction within Google. Let's talk about that then, Ego, and why did you go in that direction? And tell us about some of the cool stuff you worked on over the years.
My career, I've kind of moved in like 5-year blocks in between, so corporate engineering, I did several roles within that. After my 5th year, I was in Silicon Valley at the time, in Mountain View headquarters. I'd been doing the financial systems implementation for a number of years, done mergers and acquisitions, technology integrations. And I've always been passionate about the emerging markets, just as a person outside of the workplace. Yeah. And I do volunteering in the emerging markets. At that time, in 2010, I heard about Google focusing on emerging markets. So at that time, we didn't have any offices in the emerging markets. And someone said, "Oh, by the way, did you know that we're opening operations, or we're running an initiative in emerging markets?" And said, "Oh, this VP is visiting." So I asked his executive admin, to put time in his calendar. I wanted to have a chat, and I met with him, and I said, "This is who I am. This is what I've done. This is what I'm passionate about. These are the gaps, but I know I can do it. You just need to give me the chance." He asked me about internet infrastructure. I said, "Here's where I tick boxes, and here are the boxes I don't tick. However, I know I can do it." He had done his research, because I said why I wanted to meet. And he said to me, "You're very clear in what you want, what you know, what you don't know, and how you go about closing the gaps." And he said to me, "You need to only sit in 2 infrastructure meetings and you will nail this." And he said, "If you're willing to relocate to the region, then you would be considered for the role." And I said, "Yes, when?" That's
a confidence booster there, isn't it?
Yeah. I said, "When?" Anyway, long story short, he was central. The team was kind of centralized in Ghana, in West Africa. I moved there, and our scope was to. So if you think about education, so education should be a level. It should be a level playing field for everyone. Unfortunately, some kids don't have access to the education that we have, right? And the reason for that is barriers to access, because, technology has opened up the world, and we've seen it's been heightened actually during the last 2 years, during the pandemic. A lot of children in the world, or students in the world, regardless of age, don't have access to quality education because of the barriers to access, the infrastructure, internet infrastructure, affordable devices, and the cost of the internet, so data. Our scope was to reduce the barriers to access, which is what I just mentioned, right? Our approach was to work with the regulatory bodies in these countries. When I say markets, I mean countries. The regulatory bodies, the key decision makers, the policy makers, and up to the presidential level. So we're saying that in order, the leaders for tomorrow are the kids who don't have access to education today. How can we remove those barriers so that the kids or the students have access to quality education by reducing the cost of the internet and affordable devices that are built for these markets, right? Over the years, we managed to reduce the cost of coming online. I remember we go to a university and they only have 1 gig of bandwidth for the whole university. and maybe only the vice chancellor's office had access to the internet. The cost of one megabit per second was $2,500, right?
Wow.
This is something that we pay like £10 for. And then over a 5-year period, we brought about affordable internet. We worked with telcos and internet service providers.
Are you talking specifically about Ghana here, or are you talking about...
No. The whole region.
The whole
of
Western
emerging
Africa?
market. No, the whole of
emerging markets in general.
Yes.
Right. Sorry,
so
okay.
we were looking at 23 countries at the time. So Morocco was in there, Egypt was in there, Brazil, Peru, Ghana, Senegal, Nigeria, South Africa, Kenya. And by the time because we had a reorg and, things changed, the cost per megabit was $100. So it meant from 2,500 to 100. So where a school would have 1 Mbps for the entire school, there was now like 1 gig and 10 gig and higher because it was now affordable.
How did you bridge the hardware gap, though? Obviously, you're talking about the connectivity.
The idea is to build the local economy. You don't just bring everything in, right? So working with local OEMs, equipment manufacturers, yes. So work with them to build equipment or hardware that was suitable for those markets. As part of the work that we did, we had the president actually of Mexico declaring internet access as a basic human right.
Wow, that's unbelievable. I mean, there must be people, who you have changed. The stuff you were involved with there changed people's lives, clearly.
Absolutely.
You must be so proud of that. But let me ask you that one then, Edgar. What are you most proud of in terms of all the amazing stuff you've been involved with at Google? What are you most proud of?
I would actually say the fact that through those efforts, we're actually changing lives. We're bringing about sustained change. There are a number of things that kind of lead up to that. So we talked about affordable access, for example. I mean, going from 2,500 to 100, that means more people can afford to be online. That was then, and now it's even gone down further because recently, I think it was even last week. Last week, we landed a subsea cable in Nigeria, it's called Equiano, and the week before it was Togo. So we're actually going down the coast of West Africa and landing undersea cable. By doing that, you're boosting the economy. We're boosting the economy, the ecosystem. We're actually boosting the ecosystem. We're bringing about economic opportunities for the ecosystem, be it small businesses, big businesses, government, education. So it's a combination of things that it's just really what I'm most proud of is the impact that we've made and we continue to make and will continue to make. In conjunction, of course, with the markets themselves, policymakers and regulators and all of that.
Sure. So what, in terms of like figures now in Sub-Saharan Africa, what percentage of the population of Sub-Saharan Africa would you say roughly are active internet users, are essentially online now? And what targets do you have in place?
Okay, so there's 1.14 billion people in the region, in Sub-Saharan Africa. Of that number, only about 300 million are online. So you can imagine the opportunity with the balance,
sure.
800 million.
The economic opportunity there is crazy, isn't
it? Exactly. One thing that I've noticed, or, that's true about the region, about Sub-Saharan Africa, is the fact that there's a huge small business or entrepreneurship population. From basic things, and we have a number of efforts to bring small businesses online. We have different initiatives. There's one called Hustle Academy, for example. Like people believe in hustling, in starting small businesses. So there are lots of programs to bring people online. So like you said, the economic opportunity is immense. By bringing people online, it's actually expanded their customer base. People are getting clients and customers from all over the world, whereas in the past, It was really in their local areas. So there's so much opportunity to be tapped into.
Yeah. So what excites you most then, Ego, about the situation in Africa? What do you think is going to be the best outcome of a more digitalized economy in the Sub-Saharan African nations?
So I think the opportunities that present themselves and the fact that so much has been achieved in the region. However, there's so much further we can go, not just us, but, all the other, like tech companies and other tech companies. There's so much that can be achieved. What I would say, though, is as much as every tech company has an agenda and is working on different areas, it all comes together as digital transformation. So what I would like to see is some sort of partnership where it's less about what each organization is achieving in the region, but more about what is the industry achieving as a collective for the benefit of the various regions all over the world. So some sort of consortium partnership where we all bring areas of expertise, or we say, okay, similar to like a RACI model, right? Where we say, you're responsible for this. This is responsible for, their account. The other person is accountable. The other organization would be consulted. And then the last one would be informed, right? So we treat it like a project, right? So for me, I would say the opportunities are huge. The potential is there. We think about, I've talked about the percentage of youth there. So I think, the opportunities are huge. And one thing I'm excited about is the fact that governments are also starting to realize the importance of technology in their respective markets. Look how much is achieved through technology during elections. It's helping with education. We have a number of programs that are actually digitizing content, creating content like app. There's a program I'm aware of where we've built basic math app which doesn't actually rely on the internet. It works offline. The opportunity is huge.
I want to bring the conversation back about you, Ego, okay? Because you've obviously done some inspirational stuff. You've obviously changed people's lives. What strikes me is you are very driven, and it seems like that you were always going to have a successful career because you kind of got it inside you. I just wanted to ask you, where does that come from?
Okay, so where does it come from? It has to be upbringing. I was brought up in a household that saw male children and female children as equal. And my parents kind of instilled that belief in us that whatever you set your mind to do, you can do it. And I remember something that my mom always used to say to me. She would say, what is worth doing at all is worth doing well. So I think that's really where where it stems from, and there was a lot of positivity in the home. I was never told be quiet, and we had a view, we had a point of view, we had a voice.
Sure.
I think that's where my confidence actually comes from.
So what is next for Ego then? What are you working on right now? What's around the corner? Is it just literally with the stuff you talked about in Africa, or do you have other plans? What cool stuff are you working on right now?
Right now, so I've been in this particular role. I've been in this role for 10 months. We have this big initiative around Build for Africa. So if we think about, one of Google's mission is really to build for everyone. Building for everyone minus a region is not building for everyone. So we have this big initiative to build for Africa, which encompasses a number of things. So I think it was October last year, our CEO announced a $1 billion investment over 5 years to support digital transformation in the region. Wow. So I'm actually excited about that. Part of that involves enabling affordable access and building helpful products. I talked about the landing of Equiano, the subsea cable. So there's a lot that's coming out of that. And then the other one is really investing in entrepreneurs and technologies to drive the digital transformation. So if I were to sum that up, I'm actually excited in the work that we are doing or we will do to bring about a digital transformation in all these countries. So starting there and then scaling to other places. Because, if you think about where India was a few years ago and where they are today, I would like to be involved in that transformation. And then, open up other opportunities. People ask me, how have you managed to stay at Google for so long? So I would say it's fresh. There's always something. There's always something to work on, something exciting. Even if you think, I'm going to leave in a year, you look around and it's just that innovation is there. If I think ahead, though, I've always said to myself, I would love to work at the UN. Don't know why. I love the charity sector, and I do a lot of work with organizations like governmental agencies like that, and just volunteering that I do. I'm on boards of charities, and so I think the tail end of my career may be along those lines. And I've done work with them as a partner, so Google partners with them, and I see some of the practices. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with their practices, but I'm thinking if only certain organizations could run like high tech, that would be amazing. But for me, I think I'll probably end my career in a place like that.
Oh, fantastic. So let's talk a little bit about your sort of altruistic endeavors then. What kind of charitable stuff are you passionate about? What kind of charities are you involved with then?
The most active one is I'm involved in a charity called Karimu Foundation, and it's really serving the entire community. So there's education piece. So it's taking a community and transforming the entire community. So looking at health and sanitation, looking at education. It's not just the education, it's where they're educated, the buildings, and then focusing on the teachers as well. Because if you don't sort out the teachers, if you don't help the teachers, how can they help the children? Nutrition is part of it. Healthcare is part of it. So building schools, actually physically building schools, building teachers' houses, building doctors' houses, building clinics, hospitals, bringing medical equipment, training teachers, so sponsoring teachers to get degrees, focusing on disabled children, because the culture in some of these places, disabled kids are hidden away. So bringing about, building hostels and for the children. So it's bringing water, clean water. So it's really touching on those things. And then in London, I'm involved in a youth charity that basically discourages children or youth from joining gangs. So providing opportunities for them through sports, through music.
So what is the name of that charity, sorry, Ego?
It's called Ignite Youth.
That's really unique. The Ignite Youth, I think that gang culture and gang warfare and stuff is a real problem in inner cities all over the UK. So Absolutely. I think that's a really unique and interesting one. Mm-hmm. I'm really keen to ask you about your experience of the pandemic. It's been a challenging couple of years. What's changed at Google and what's changed for you personally?
What's changed at Google is an even higher emphasis on well-being. And there are a number of things that are in place now, to ensure that we take care of ourselves. I'm part of the global well-being for the go-to-market team. We encourage globally people to have mindful Mondays and focus Fridays. So we have hybrid working like most people. So people are encouraged to come in 3 days a week for the interactions, and then just pauses in the day. We have 1 day a quarter where it's a reset day. The entire organization, you take the day off. Some people may choose to work, but it's a reset day. and you get paid to kind of reset. So these are things that any organization can practice. But with our tools, for example, Google Calendar, right? There's certain features that are now built into our tools that actually reminds you or forces you to take that time for yourself. So speedy meetings, for example, you book a 30-minute meeting, it defaults to 25 minutes. It gives you 5 minutes. If you have back-to-back meetings, you have 5 minutes to yourself, right? Or focus time. That's a feature in Google Calendar. So if you block time to do focus work and you set it as focus time, it auto declines calendar invites. I think that's amazing. And then personally, I unfortunately was in isolation before the lockdown. I was diagnosed with cancer late 2019. So I was receiving chemotherapy before the lockdown. So I was kind of in isolation already anyway. What this whole time has taught me is just kind of put yourself first, and nothing is that serious, really. Just put yourself first. If you put yourself first, I'm saying to myself now, put myself first. Then I show up as my best self to my job.
And you provide more value to others then, don't you, as well?
Exactly. So how can you fill others when your cup is empty?
That's inspirational. I love that. Well, look, thank you for sharing that with us, Ego. So I always end on these short sequence of questions. So okay. I'm just curious, what if you could turn back the clock, what advice would you give to your 21-year-old self?
I talked about knowing your brand. Either knowing your brand or know what you want your brand to be. Then looking at what will take you there, where are the gaps? And then just be focused on closing those gaps and being intentional. And then, some of the things that it was almost like make or break. It's not that important, just live whilst being intentional, right? Of course I wouldn't say I wasted my life, but, have fun, be intentional, and just kind of, stay focused, know what the gap is between where you are, where you want to be, and be focused on closing those gaps. And if you make a mistake, it's fine. Just course correct.
Mistakes are part of the process of development, aren't they? So.
Exactly.
So what book or anecdote or story have you been inspired by in the last couple of years?
In terms of books, I've read a number of books. So if you asked me that question a few months ago, it'll probably be different. Next week, it'll probably be different. But there's a book. It's called Own the Room. I love that book. It's by a lady called Viv Groskop. Groskop. It's such a good book. Oh, okay. I love it.
What was it about that book that sort of that you enjoyed then, and what did you take from it?
It's just kind of highlighting the fact that, we tend to, when I say we, so women, this book is I'm sure it would benefit men as well. Sometimes women show up and feel inadequate. There's no need for that. Humans have flaws, and it's just the directness of the author and just kind of pointing out things that that resonate with me. And I'd be like, yes, actually, I do that sometimes. Why do I do it? So it made me question some of my approaches to speaking in a meeting or dealing with people, right? And it just kind of reminded me that be intentional, just be authentic. And then the other thing as well is read the room. Sometimes we're in a meeting and we just are so caught up in what we're getting our point across. There might be other people who have something to say, but don't necessarily have the boldness to speak up. Read the room and know, and just kind of pick that out. And then if you've had a conversation with this person outside of the meeting around that topic, encourage them to say something and say, oh, Vivian, when we spoke last week, you had something interesting to say about this point. Do you mind just sharing it? I thought it was quite profound. For me, it actually helped me think about how as well as be more intentional about delivering my message, how can I be more intentional about giving someone else a voice or an opportunity, or when they say something, acknowledge and say, you know what, that was a really good point. And then the other thing is really around how, somebody might crack a joke about somebody in a room or in a meeting. If it doesn't sit well with me, it's nice to kind of speak up for somebody else if they don't, of course in a professional way, but speak up for others and just kind of help elevate their voices.
Sure. I think it's about retaining your sort of moral compass, isn't
it? Yes, awareness. Exactly.
Ultimately, lots of what you're talking about, Ego, everything you talk about, I agree with. There's an underlying theme that's coming across here, and I think it's to do with confidence and like inner belief in yourself. And this certainly comes through in your son, for sure. And it certainly comes through in the way you talk as well. So I think it's brilliant, and I've really enjoyed chatting to you, okay? So
likewise.
Thank you so much for coming on. I think so many people will get value from listening to you talk. I think you've done some incredible stuff, and you're an inspiration. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. Thanks, Gareth.
But where can people find you, and where can they find the charities and the stuff you're involved with?
I'm on LinkedIn, linkedin.com/Ego Obi. The consulting, mentoring work that I do, I actually have a website, egoobi.com.
Perfect. Brilliant. Thank you so much, Ego.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
As you quite possibly have heard me mentioning in the past, we record the mass majority of our episodes at an amazing studio facility here in Cardiff at Tramshed Tech. Tramshed Tech is a collaborative community of entrepreneurs and scaling businesses geared towards supporting growth in tech, digital and creative industries across an ever-increasing collection of locations and partner locations, UK-wide and internationally. It really is the perfect place for your business to start up, scale up, accelerate or innovate. Head over to tramshedtech.co.uk or just search Tramshed Tech on your favourite social media platform.